2024, right around the corner. Welcome, guys. How are we?
Hi, everyone.
Excited.
Good. So we have, we decided to do a get together just like last year, and obviously 12 months have gone by. A lot of things that we'd like to sort of uh, do a quick retrospect on. And we have a new face as well in the team, which Van has recently joined on the engineering side of things. So we also have James, which most of you know, and Dan, which heads the community, familiar face. He's been around for a while. Um, so I'll let maybe James do the introduction of Van so we can begin on that and we can cover some engineering milestones from the last sort of 12 months. I think that's probably what most people are excited about. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'll do a quick intro of Van. He's a fantastic engineer. So Van's a new principal engineer. He's got a lot of crypto experience. He's worked within crypto communities before. I might let him do a little bit of an intro in a sec. Yeah, he's a fantastic engineer. He's jumped straight into a lot of our code base, which is fantastic. And Van is working really heavily within our Matter One product. So he's looking into a lot of complex stuff at the moment, and he's really jumped in pretty quickly, which is great. You might have already seen some of the updates he's been pushing to check out and stuff like that. Maybe Van, I'll get you to do a little intro in a minute when you talk through maybe some of the things that you've been working on with Matter One. I'll do a little update first. So from a high level, what we've been doing in the engineering team is we've been working on primarily, updates to checkout. We've moved from, I guess, a technical note. We've moved from 1-inch to Li-Fi as a router, so that just means we have a lot more flexibility in terms of how we're doing our quoting and our routing. A bit more flexibility on how we're able to power also our Matter API. So what we've been doing, I guess, aside from checkout, is we've been putting a lot of time and energy into building the infrastructure that we need to do to basically achieve Matter One. And so for those of you who have been around for a little while, you might have heard about Matter One quite a bit. Matter One is our any to any. We use the term swap. It's not quite a swap, and it's definitely not a bridge. But what we're trying to do is we're setting up a combination of on-chain and off-chain processes to better do value transfers within one chain and also cross chains. That means swaps of one token to another within one chain. That means swaps of one token on one chain to one token on another chain. But that also means that we can do more complex things down the line, like you could use say Ember on BSC to purchase an NFT on another chain, or be involved in a crowd sale or another chain, or even purchase a physical product through our payment rails that is then settled on, say, USDC, on ETH or Optimism or something like that, or whatever the vendor wants to settle in. And so we're really excited about, I guess, the direction that Matter One is heading in, because it allows us to really abstract or separate where we as users hold our value. Maybe we've got tokens on BSC or ETH, and then also where we need to send them and how we need that sent. We're looking at things like gas abstraction. What that means is that if you've got an asset on a particular chain, but maybe you don't have the gas, maybe you run out of BNB, you don't have any ETH in your wallet, you're still going to be able to send the tokens from that chain, or the assets from that chain, into Matter One to then pay the services, get involved in a crowd sale, buy an NFT, swap to another token. We really don't want gas to be in the way of that. We know that often it's a bit tricky sometimes. You'll run out of gas, but you've got all these tokens. You go, what do I do now? Do I have to go to a centralized exchange? With Matter One, you won't need to do that. That'll be a really nice, simple process, which is fantastic. And on the other end, we've been working with quite a number of on-ramps and off-ramps. That's one of the exciting things that's coming up. And so we're looking really forward to Q1 next year as we start to involve or start to integrate a lot of these on-ramps that we've been discussing. We've been working features that will work in with their platforms really well. Obviously, a number of you guys have seen the Unlimit integration we've got already, and some of the stuff that we're doing with Glow. That's been really exciting to get that up and running as a bit of an alpha or a beta. But I guess Q1 and Q2 next year is going to be really exciting as we expand a lot more rapidly into a number of other ramps, and also some some other integration partners as well, outside of your typical on-ramp kind of structure, that's really going to showcase the power of Meta One. Just a little quick update, I guess, is that we have almost finalized our admin dashboard. So that we'll probably start showing some screenshots and that kind of thing in the Discord and the Telegram soon of that. But that's basically a B2B dashboard. So if you've used services like Stripe, or those kind of kind of financial services, it's that kind of thing. So basically, we're going to allow on ramps and their integration partners to log in. They're going to be able to enable which tokens they want to settle in, and so they might say, cool, like we want to, from an on ramp perspective, we want to allow people to purchase Ember directly through our on ramp. We're going to enable that with a one click, which is awesome. We're going to have user management and all that kind of boring stuff that comes along with the dashboard. But really, really excited to allow some self-serve, which means that once we kind of get our initial lot of ramps up and running, after that, it's going to be very much a self-service. And so it'll allow us to scale really quickly by automating all those processes. I might hand over to Van now, because Van's been doing a lot of the hard work in terms of the underlying infrastructure and the architecture for Meta One. So I'll do a bit of a handball, Van. If you want to do a little quick intro and then tell us what you've been working on.
All right, cool. Thanks, James. So yeah, like James said, I'm starting at Ember as a principal engineer. So in the past, I've been a lead front end. In the past, I've been a technical lead, solutions architect, cloud infrastructure DevOps, full stack developer. So I guess I do a bit of everything. And recently, in the past few years, I got into blockchain. So I've been coding Solidity. I just started a bit of Rust now on Solana, and yeah, it's been quite good. So Ember, I've started full time. Maybe it's almost a month now, and been working on the dashboard side of things, the partner dashboard. Working on the back end, and also the part where when I guess our customers, the on rampers, can create orders and then process that order, and then it goes through a bunch of process, and in the end we swap the end token to the user and collect some fees, and yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to handle. Yeah, so I guess along the way there's a bit of ups and downs, and using the services that we have, I feel that there's something that we can improve on and do ourselves, like the router, for example. We can do all the routing and the aggregation on chain, and so that could help speed a lot of things up. So as the on ramping, I guess the journey, it needs to be as fast as possible, and for us to do that, we need to optimize where we can. So I feel that we can offer these extra services later on once we've hit the ground and running, and yeah, that's what we're aiming for.
Cool.
To provide a little bit of context on that, like I guess we're comparing ourselves to, how long does a normal swap take, and we're also looking at, how long does bridging typically take, because the way that we're simplifying that process, where bridging might sometimes take 30 seconds a minute, or sometimes even longer, we're looking at sub 5 seconds. The I guess the whole transaction end to end across both chains that are involved should take the length of one swap. And so that's the milestone that we're trying to hit, and Van's definitely got the experience to get us there. So it's pretty exciting working towards that goal of, we're talking on, I mean, certainly on some networks, Polygon and stuff like that, we're looking at multi-chain swaps under a couple of seconds, which is fantastic, very exciting.
Yeah, and all these things, obviously, thanks James for this update, and Van as well. And I think Van nailed the idea that there's an opportunity, here beyond building it for ourselves. But to begin with, the full objective is when you think about the infrastructure, and right now, based on the last 6 to 12 months, we've been leveraging outside infrastructure for the routing and the quoting and other things that we might touch on later. But the whole point here is it creates a single point of failure for our infrastructure. So this is a massive sort of problem. And I know a lot of community members have probably been experiencing it, but the last thing that we want is to build this system which rests on this provider or that other provider, um, and and be a threat, for the not only the efficiency but the sustainability of the whole infrastructure. Um, and one part I think I'd love us to expand on just quickly before we move on to other things is, I know that you're mentioning, James, this whole idea of doing sort of moving assets from one chain to another in X amount of speed. But to do so, if we look at sort of the industry right now, or at least the services that we've been leveraging, Van, maybe this is where you can explain what's the actual gain here. And when we start adding those together, it has a significant impact. When you have sort of this bridging service or this cross chain protocol, a lot of the reasons why they're so slow in terms of the output, well, first of all, speed is not necessarily their core focus. When you do this type of transaction, I think the underlying intent here is basically to move an asset from one chain to another. That's the actual intent. So it's sort of, think of TradFi sort of a cross-border payment. Blockchains are like countries, and you want to move like one currency to another, but you're not in a setting of payment. So cross-border payment is one thing, but if you think of what we're trying to replicate, or what we're actually trying to create in terms of experiences, let's say, obviously I'm Canadian, but let's say I go to Australia and I have my, Canadian credit card, and I'm at this coffee shop and I want to pay, it has to be instant. So there's cross border payment, but it's instant because the context is payment. So we can't leverage like the current infrastructure and the way and sort of why it's been built, because our why is very different. So what's available out there hasn't been built or isn't focused on delivering instant payment. And this is what we've been sort of bouncing internally, which is, yeah, we can do those things with these various providers, but there's issue that we can't solve. We can't go faster because there are those fixed time issues that we just can't optimize those. So I like Van, you obviously been working on this, and you'll be focusing on that also in the next couple of weeks. But can you give us an idea of what kind of gain we're looking at?
So I guess before that, I'll give you a bit of background. A I guess a transaction on the blockchain is quite different to the traditional transaction where you charge a credit card from Mastercard or something, and then there's an authorization that happens beforehand. It goes through, and then it gets processed. And maybe some days later, it could be reversed or refunded. So I guess a blockchain transaction is based on I guess a transaction that's on the signature of the user, and then it gets encrypted, and then it goes through like a public ledger, and everyone can see the information. So the transaction is quite hard to reverse, and so I guess when we're trying to bridge, or when we're trying to swap from one chain to another, then there's be a time in between where you need to confirm all your everything's correct and all the confirmations, um, so that everything's, it's not reversible, and you don't end up with a transaction that you might or might not want to refund that. So I guess we in to make everything smooth, they have to make sure that the transaction actually went through and there's no revert or anything like that. So every chain has different confirmation timing. So for example, BSC, every block is around 3 seconds, and on ETH it's around maybe 15 seconds or something like that. And on um, on BTC, on Bitcoin is around 10 minutes. So you got your different confirmations, and yeah. So I guess what we're trying to do is overcome that hurdle and make the transaction as fast as possible, bypassing that. So in order to do that, we need liquidity, and to ensure that what has been processed, that it will go through where it's intended to, and blending the border together. So I guess bridging, or any other term, will be it'd be in the past. So what that's what we're trying to achieve, and to do that, we want to cut down the transaction time to be around maybe 15 seconds, or we're not sure yet. So it's still experimental. So yeah, I hope that answered the question, Jason.
Yeah, so it's you obviously answered it from the bottom, going up, but I think also the point of bringing some technology from within is to eliminate sort of these thresholds that we can't we can't control. So give an example with like a router that is being leveraged by a third, like is serviced by another, or a price API which is not on chain, but like it affects how fast we can execute both on source and destination, because we're waiting effectively for to get that information from someone else, and then we compile those to create a trade. So by bringing that technology within, then we can have a more controlled experience on the speed. Um, so basically, yeah, sorry, my dog is pushing to get in the the room as an extra audience member. So that's why I'm looking aside. But yeah, that's one part that I was interested in you covering, which is what we're currently witnessing right now with our current providers. What are the current potential gain if we're bringing this internally
I guess the potential gain is for everyone to
in
be able
terms
to
of
enjoy.
time? In terms of
Yeah, yeah,
time,
yeah, to enjoy a smooth transaction as fast as possible, because you don't want to be in a position where you're a user and you're trying to buy an NFT, or some digital asset, or maybe in the future we even do like real products, right? as a checkout, as a payment processing. You don't want to be in a situation where you're waiting there for minutes or even hours trying to confirm the transaction across different chain, or you're playing this game and you're trying to buy an item inside this blockchain, you know, game, and you just want the item as fast as possible. I mean, there's endless possibilities how we innovate, you know, like real life applications. But yeah, the end goal is to provide the fastest transaction as possible, without any worry where the chain is. I guess blockchain should be unified as one, rather than you know, you got your thousands of other chains that try to do the same thing basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I guess just on your point, Jason, and to touch on what Van was covering, we want to find ways to slice off, a second here and a second there, and 500 milliseconds here and 500 milliseconds there. And so a lot of this process is just tuning up the different integrations and processes we already have. So like right now, we need to fetch a quote, and then we need to do the signature, and then we need to put the on-chain transaction on. We need to get a response from that. We then need to trigger another chain to do another thing. And so all throughout that process, we've got a beta that's working at the moment and that we're playing around with. But in that, we're trying to find each tiny little bit that we can continue to refine to shave off those seconds. Because if you've got a 15-second transaction, you've got a 10-second transaction right now, but we're able to shave off 2 seconds here, 1 second there, 500 milliseconds here. You can very quickly halve the time of that transaction. And as we continue to develop our products, it's going to get even smaller, and we're going to be able to find ways to very efficiently trigger these transactions on different chains almost all at the same time. And that's kind of what we're working on internally at the moment, to make sure that, if you're talking about a real life scenario, you're going to go tap your card somewhere. You don't want that awkward situation where you've paid for your chocolate bar at a service station, or gas station, and you're waiting like 15 seconds while the little machine, processes it. You're wondering, will it, won't it? In much the same way, we want to make sure that crypto transactions are going through with the same level of, surety and the same level of consistency.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're doing a lot of things internally to put those processes in place.
Yeah, I think the important part here, and we're going to move to you, Dan. Don't worry. I know you're excited about talking about your bit. But I think the big difference here that we're trying to build is that our payment system runs on DeFi. And what this means is that the whole system is not custodial. So when you're building a custodial system, you have control on, like, you don't have to wait for like block confirmation. You're basically just moving asset around in a ledger that is off chain, and you're not really moving anything around. You're just doing pluses and minuses, so you can do that instantly. But the problem with that is that the assets that are part of that payment system are quite limited. So people can't actually use any asset in the payment system. So it's as if we had this payment system in real life that only accepted like 5 different currencies, which is not the case, because every time you would show up with the wrong currency, you'd have to do a swap or go to the currency exchange and then get back and and then pay. DeFi has thousands of assets, and people want to do different things with it, but one of those use cases is leverage that as a form of asset that can be used in the context of payments. Someone pays, but also on the other side there's the merchant, which probably would be interested in having this transaction settled in a specific currency as well. So with that in mind, you have to deal with DeFi, and DeFi is not custodial, so it creates new challenges. from an interoperability perspective. A lot of people will say, well, you got instant transaction on this specific chain, like a Solana or something like that, but that's only in a very isolated case. It's just like if you don't have interoperability, yeah, it can work this asset with that asset, and that's it. It's a very limited use case. But if someone like James has mentioned, comes with, because blockchains are like countries, there's going to be more and more countries, and you need to make sure that interoperability works in real time between these countries. That's the whole point. And if you're building a payment system with crypto, but from a custodial perspective, you're not creating a blockchain based payment system. You're basically offloading everything off chain, and you're just doing ledger based payments, which is totally different. Um, but anyway, yeah, I think this is where the hard work needs to be put in, because if we want to create a payment system that is decentralized, not only from the system itself, but the assets that are being used in it, and the chains from a diversity perspective that we can include any. Um, it's it's a very different approach, and I think what Van has mentioned, designing from the bottom up rather than from the top, and really thinking about first principle. And as James was saying, shaving off like zero point 0.5 here, one there, five there. Um, and bringing a lot of those things internally that haven't been built for payments, they don't have that in mind, will create a significant gain and a significant sort of differentiating or value proposition that we can bring to the market that is non-existent. Because even if you wanted to build it, the providers that are currently present that run a lot of what we have out there, they can't they're currently not providing what we need. So we have to think outside the box and bring a lot of those things internally. Otherwise we're stuck. We can't do better than what others are doing. So yeah. So that's
We do
part of,
have,
yeah.
I was just going to say, we have a quick question from YouTube, which might be good to answer before we move on.
Yeah.
So someone's asked, basically, what's the end goal here? Is it being able to like tap a phone on a terminal and we pay with crypto? Or is it more about, in crypto land, being able to exchange one asset to another? I think for us, the simplistic way to look at it is we want to be able to take an asset or a value we have in one place and very, very efficiently put it somewhere else. And so the end result is basically, maybe one day it'll be a phone tap. Probably for now, it'll still involve your MetaMask or your Wallet Connect. But we want to make sure that you can go to a website and you could very efficiently pay for a physical item, an NFT, a crowd sale, or another crypto token with any token on pretty much any other chain. So let's say I've got $100 of Ember on BSC. I should be able to buy $100 worth of NFT or crowd sale, or maybe in-game crypto asset, or maybe another token or a physical item, as easily as if I were to go and pay for that with a credit card or a debit card. I've got $100 here. I should be able to spend $100 there, and that's what Matter One is in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this broadly speaking, I think from 30,000 foot, the fantasy is, I think it's, and we're trying to communicate as much as possible but then the follow-up question is like what and how and all of those things. But we want to build a better payment system. And that payment system, that's the fantasy. The fantasy is there's been a current payment system for the last, if you look at ACH, it's a little bit more than 60 years old. So if you think of underlying infrastructure at this, the TradFi and the central bank and all those sorts of things, which is governed from the top, the fantasy is to create a new payment system that is governed from the bottom, that effectively can complement and potentially eventually replace the current payment system that exists. So the fantasy is that, is to create this new network that we'll be working on for the next 100 years, from a marketplace perspective. If you think about the payment system, it's a two-sided, well, technically more, but there's supply and demand. If you look at TradFi, it's the same thing. You have currencies and you have things that people can buy, and you have the merchants. You have all these different stakeholders that leverage this payment system, and these stakeholders, they create a payment network. So right now we're focused on creating the payment system that can ultimately outcompete the current one. And yeah, but at the core, as James was saying, at the core, it's about real-time value exchange amongst these various ecosystem. And then you can start talking about what can you do with real-time value exchange. Well, with real-time value exchange between chain, you can start thinking about use cases that were not possible, where right now we're heavily focused on ramping to any, but this on ramping to any can only be possible if what we're working on at the system level is fast, which is not the case right now. If you think about on ramping, you can't on ramp in real time. It takes time, because there's all these middle players. You don't have this, and then, as James was mentioning as well, paying with any asset on one chain and settling in another chain to buy anything. Which, again, going back to TradFi, is the same thing. We're living what we're aiming for in crypto, but we're living it every day in TradFi. So I think that's the end fantasy. But maybe more on this later. There's a bunch of other things in the what and the how that we're able to talk about in the new year. But I'd like to bring Dan in, and so we can look at some of the strategies we've been doing also throughout the year, which is create more content and also do some education, and ultimately better communicate what we're trying to achieve, which I think it's been something quite not complicated, but when you're, focused on creating something new, sometimes one of your biggest challenges is communicating in, and the whole getting various segments of the public to understand what this is. And I think ultimately what's in it for them, because everybody looks at things in through the lens of what's in it for me. Like, that's great, that's for them, but like, what's in it for me? Like, how does this make sense for me? So yeah.
Yeah, if I may, I think a challenge we found quite unique this year is, uh, again, communicating what it is we're doing, what it is Matter One is, what the Smart Swap API is, and being able to differentiate these items and break them down in ways that resonate with what specific people want, what they expect, and being able to we're treading in uncharted territories, with Matter One and with the API. So there are certain things, there aren't really words yet to describe what it is we're doing. A lot of people still use the word bridge to describe what we're doing with Matter One, bridging an asset from source to destination chain. That's not actually what we're doing, but we're so entrenched in this language and these concepts that we have to communicate some of these things in ways that break these conventions. And 2023 has very much been a year where we've been strategizing, how do we describe this? How do we talk about this? How do we make sense of it for the average person and make it relevant to them? And it's still a work in progress for sure, but a big part of this has been focusing on content. And if you haven't, I definitely recommend you give us a look on Medium. It should be medium.com/Ember Labs. We have a lot of good content there. but even just within our communities and being able to properly tread that line where we are able to describe the things we're able to describe, while also keeping, certain, business critical things that we're not able to talk about, in the background, in the way that we're still trying to be transparent and precise and how we communicate. But it's a lot of different things. But I also uh, think it's worthwhile mentioning all the various different things that go on in Ember, beyond just myself and the people that are here. 2023 has really taken Ember to a level where it's a real company. We have people working on design, we have people working on data and analytics. I also do a lot of customer support. I'm sort of beginning to really hone in on customer journey, things that affect the people, like the projects that want to use checkout and making their lives easier, updating documentation and making things smoother from that regard. And all these things are interlinked. The stronger the foundation, the bigger the building, and honestly the sounder the building you can build on top of it. And 2023 has definitely been a year where we've been building a strong foundation. And all the things that James, Van, and Jason have been talking about are only possible when you have a strong foundation built underneath it. And I'd just like to give a big shout out, to various people on the team who do incredible things. Eli, Jose, Evan, Ryan, Jack. If I have not mentioned you, just know you're still appreciated. It's just the first name that came to my head. But it's a team effort, and 2023 has very much been a year of creating a solid foundation for what should be, a project that could go on for God knows how long. And as we enter into 2024, I'd just like to thank everyone, in the community, and everyone who tunes in and reads my content on Medium, and who just understands and sees quite what's going on, and how impactful it all is. And it's been a good year. It's been a very exciting year, and we've been able to accomplish quite a bit. Standing here last year, we were still ideating Matter 1. I remember sitting there with Jason trying to, get this white paper out, and we're sitting here like, how do we explain this? Where do we even begin? And now we're here. It's coming to life before our eyes. Our team is rapidly expanding. We've brought on some incredible talent, and it's quite wonderful to see this all kind of falling into place. And heading into 2024, I don't think I can stress just how excited I am, and how excited the various different team members are to see this through, and see where the road ahead takes us.
Thanks, Dan. I think we're all about to shed a tear. It was a good retrospect, and I'll probably add on some thoughts around next year and what people can expect. And so obviously sharing the same thing as you, Dan. It's been a momentous year. A lot of it, luckily, or unluckily, it's been a bear market. So, but that's about to end. But the fact that we've been able to really think through the payment system, that helped a lot. In terms of giving us this luxury of thinking through and testing things and gathering feedback from a lot of those potential stakeholders that will be leveraging this payment system in the following quarters. So when we think about what's next, I know a lot of people are interested in the big picture and the fantasy and everything, but I think what we're really doubling down on right now, and we're thinking about, and we're always scoping sort of the next couple of months, we're always working within that time frame, because God knows what's going to happen afterwards. Web3 and crypto moves so fast, and there's a lot of anticipation for next year. And I think we can all agree that it's going to, we're at the tail end of that bear market. But for us, and we've been saying it in various different channels, but right now our focus is to create, this flow of liquidity uh, into DeFi through on-ramping. And that, obviously I can't be accountable for it, but we're really aiming to bring this to market and, get out of beta sometime in Q1, because we're really, really close. We've been learning a lot from, these partners, these ramps that we've been doing back and forth, really understanding their business model and how does it work to be a ramp and dealing with custodial sort of liquidity providers and thinking about what's the actual opportunity here, not only for them but for the end user, plus the experience and all of the various stakeholders that are part of this experience. So we're really doubling down on this, and we're also heavily focused on, as you know, Matter One as a protocol needs to run on liquidity. So in the last couple of weeks, couple of months as well, we're nearing this end of a design phase where it feels quite clear to us that we'll be able to communicate in January at some point the actual plan for providing liquidity in this protocol. It cannot run without quite a decent amount of money. But surprisingly, the whole objective of the protocol is to run on the least amount. But we're going into this without knowing how much it will need. So, with that in mind, like providing liquidity to the protocol is critical, and it's going to be something quite exciting. Everybody will be able to participate, and the rewards, the incentive for providing liquidity are going to be extremely attractive because we want them not only to be attractive, but we want this liquidity provisioning, or at least this product, to be sustainable and be attractive for as long as possible, because for as long as the payment system will exist, it will need to run on liquidity. So there's going to be a bunch of different ways to participate. So these are the two things that we're really doubling down for next quarter, really bringing to market the ramp to any, and we're doing we're definitely going to be doing it with, from, I can at least tell you that there's a good 5 ramps, really significant, players in the space, and we have at least 10 waiting to see it before adopting it. And the ones that are waiting are the bigger ones, because they have a lot more to lose with regards to the risk involved, and working with a new player like us. But the ones that we're working with right now, they're small to mid tier. They're hungry. They're looking for an edge, because there's a status quo out there, and they want to be able to compete, and that gives them the edge to compete, to list assets instantly, look at the market, see what's emerging, add them to their ramp, market it. All of this can be done in an hour, rather than before. It was not possible. It was a process that would take months, at the minimum weeks, and it would lock the asset in a relationship with one specific ramp. Now, when surfaced through our payment system, that asset can be used by dozens, if not, more vendors that can on ramp them. So it's a really different dynamic. Ultimately, um, there's another big thing that I can end on, which isn't certain, but it's definitely certain that we're doing. Is the outcome going to work? I'm highly confident that it will, but I'm going to leave you guys on this because I think you deserve it. 2023 has been a pretty brutal year for a lot of people. I think if we're here today is because we've obviously done something right. You know, most of the team is still the same people, and we're super excited to enter 24. We have a lot of ambition, and one of them is effectively to be regulated. And we're working really, really hard in the last couple of months to figure that whole landscape out. Where do we fit in it? And I can tell you with certainty that we are applying to get a bit license out of New York in early January. And that will get us into a position where, uh, you know, we'll have one of the most impressive moat out there. You know, this is definitely something that nobody has in our industry, in our space, which is to create an enterprise grade payments API for on-chain assets. And if we're regulated and we get this bit license, it means that we'll open up all the big boys' doors. Basically, every single door will open up to us. And what we've learned is that there is no realistic way forward without it. And what I mean by realistic way forward, I mean that if we intend on really playing in the big leagues, if we intend on doing real business, not like Wild West business, not like we're having fun here, but we're not really serious about it. If we intend on doing things right and basically lead by example and set the standard and set the pace, that is the path forward. There is just no other path forward than this one. So, yeah, I am beyond excited about this because it took a lot of time for us to nail all those validation so that we could be eligible to this process. And we only learned about it a couple weeks ago. And we've collectively decided that this is a path we want to embark on. It's a journey. It will make what we do um, a lot more scrutinized, but I think that's good. And we believe in quality, not quantity. So for us, we're not about enabling 5 million different assets because we all know that a great deal of them shouldn't be out there. So we're going to be doubling down on quality very much so that we can create a space where like doing your own research doesn't exist, at least not at the am I gonna get quote unquote rug pull or not. Doing your own research should be and should have always been about like researching the one that has the best opportunity, not like um the other side, which is, hey, I don't want to get scammed here. That's a lot of the time what doing your own research is about, is making sure, hey, be careful. That be careful shouldn't exist. So this is a high conviction that we have, and we're going to do it through regulated type of approaches, money transmitter licenses. And we're starting with New York, but you can expect, if everything goes well, we're going to have many more states. We're going to have many more jurisdiction around the world because we want to be this payment system that everybody uses in various different contexts. So I don't know if you have any parting words, James and Van. I know Dan and I have said a few, but I know you guys are excited, but we'll let you, have the last word, and then we'll wrap it up.
I don't know if there's anything extra from me. I think you've covered it all really well, Jason. For me, let's just get building. Van, anything from you?
I mean, I haven't been here for too long, so I've only just started, maybe a month full time. But yeah, like I've really enjoyed working for Amber Labs. and Matter, working on Matter 1. Everyone's been a pleasure working with, and it's a great start. So I feel really welcome to the team, and looking forward to what we can build together. We can build amazing things if we put all our minds to it. As blockchain, we're trying to unify it as one. So we're a team. We're one team. So we have we have ambitions, and what we're trying to achieve. We have the same goals. So yeah. So we'll work towards bring everyone together and bring payments together for everyone. So yeah. So that yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
You guys have